In my presentation, I will look into how to succeed with digital transformation in shipping, and I will share some information, some experience from DNV, and our view on important issues which has to be in place in order to succeed with the digital transformation, and also how we contribute. And not surprisingly, I will talk about breaking the maritime data silos through standardization and how we and the industry should collaborate in order to do that. So I believe that's pretty much on top of the topic of today's webinar. Probably you know DNV from many dimensions. I assume most of you know us as the world largest classification society. Some of you will know us from participating in various R&D projects, and others will know our advisory arm, where we actually support the industry to achieving, for example, digitalization and decarbonization. And I'm working in that part. In the last 10 years, I'm working with the safety advisory, but I also have a background from software IT, and I'm now heading our services for what we call smart shipping services. Please give me a note if you cannot see or anything. I assume everything is okay, so I just proceed. So what's happening in shipping? I think most speakers have been into this. I think shipping has been used to and will always be used to fluctuating markets. But on top of that, now we have a growing expectation towards transparency and sustainability when it comes to decarbonization in particular. And then there is a very strong impact of new technologies and digitalization in shipping. So sort of two transformations on top of each other in a tough market as usual, or a very competitive market. So how can sort of digitalization contribute to this? It is part of the equation, but obviously, as you can see, and we have talked about, it is basically also an enabler for both being competitive and to contribute to reducing the footprint and being compliant and transparent on decarbonization. So it's an important driver in shipping and an enabler. And it's all about what we have been talking about today. It's about taking data from the vessel, distribute it, and processing it, learning from it, and improve our operations in different aspects. So where are we today? The current situation in shipping is, as you probably are aware of, is that we are still not very mature when it comes to digital transformation. That means we are not that mature in applying data and use it to our benefit in a structured way. There are other industries which have come further, both on this and standardization, for example, aviation, and also to a certain extent, oil and gas. But shipping and in maritime, we are really good at learning and being resilient and take the opportunity. And as pointed out through the pandemic now, we have really taken steps towards digital transformation, which basically means that we use digitalization to work differently and still achieve our prime objective, and that is to ship goods to the most effective way. But since we are where we are and we have not really taken a big step on this area. Our main issue now is that we have many vendors, many systems on board, and they are still to a certain extent not integrated. And we could say that we are hampered by sort of data silos in shipping, where there is a lack of standardization and a lack of integration between the different solution providers. And obviously this is a prerequisite to fix before we can really take fleet data in and turn it to our advantage. So this is sort of where we want to be, sort of gathering the data and spread it out and use it for a purpose. And the way to do it is basically the topic of this webinar, and that is basically through breaking down the silos, through standardization, and through APIs. So I guess we are on the same platform here. So in the rest of my presentation, I would like to tell a little bit on how DNV have been sort of contributed in particular to the ISO 19847 and 19848 standards, and how we now use them and apply it in our rules and in our standards, but also in the way we are working with industry and in order to deliver our own data-driven services, but also to help our owner, operators, vendors to also use data-driven services and apply them. So basically, we took an active part in the working group, and Steinar Låg from us was present, and I know he knows a few of you here in the virtual room. He can unfortunately not participate today. But where we contributed the most here in developing was that we added on our VIS, our vessel information system, as an appendix for use by the industry, and in particularly for sensor naming, so that we can actually get real-time sensor data into the data stream. And here we have a benefit because DNV have used and developed this standard since 2005. We use it in our production system and in our product models. So there are actually 20,000 ships out there which has a product model and is connected to it. And now we open it up, and it's up to the industry to use it. We also offer product assurance for ISO 19847 on shipboard data servers. I will come back to how we now have integrated that into our rules. And then our Veracity platform also support the ISO 19848 standard. The data collection infrastructure ship notation was launched late 2020, and the rules also came into force then, which means that there is now a rule set and a standard out in the market based on ISO 19847, which can be used to reliably and safely transfer data and collect data from multiple systems on board. And it can also collect from multiple vessels in a common infrastructure. And obviously then we are talking, because then we can actually do a fleet standardization on data. And for an owner operator who want to optimize, this is core. It's basically the starting point to succeed. And then also you can now share a large amount of time series through this standardization. So it's a powerful enabler for analytics and sort of centralization and analytics. I will not go into the details. You can read more about it. But for you who have been in the industry, you will probably notice that most of the relevancy of the standards are implemented here. It can be and it also includes data quality and data security. So for more information, you can go into our websites and read more or contact our customer network or customer support network. Maybe a little bit more interestingly then is that when you have this data structure in place, and this is part of topic of my presentation, is that being a society, we can provide a class society, we can provide sort of a fair playground through standardization and open up for implementation of digitalization. And there we also have some experience now working with close customers and partners on how this best should be done. And then we are more over to the topic previously mentioned by other presenters, that it's not only about technology, it's also about the organization, the process, and the people. So digital transformation is actually not that simple. It is quite difficult because it implies working in different ways, and to implement this in 24/7, 365 very operational organization like shipping companies and ship management companies is not straightforward. So what we are very careful in our recommendations with when we help our customer is that you have to look into your strategy and really find out how digitalization can drive your strategic goals and not vice versa. And for that, we recommend to develop so-called digital transformation roadmaps to have a roadmap for the future. And it has to be embedded in all levels in the organization. And still, it is difficult. But we have some recommendation. I will not go through the details on how to succeed. I mentioned it has to be strategically driven. There has to be a smart fleet transformation and standardization of data. And then the big change will be to change the way we do traditional ship management and make it data driven. And that is basically a change management process where you also have to implement a strong digital platform and digital solutions to succeed. And in the fourth column here, you can really take the advantage out of data-driven ship management. And studies show that you can, for example, take out up to 10 to 15% more of efficiency gains just by applying the digitalization in this way. So that means, for example, on an energy efficiency and footprint, this could be a much lower hanging fruit than, for example, transforming the fleet towards new fuels and new technologies on board. Many will say that the investment cost here will be smaller. So it could be an ideal first step to move the EXI curve a little bit further out to the horizon and earn some time to do the big steps within decarbonization. So smart fleet transformation, there we really recommend to apply the 19847/48 ISO standardization, and we have made available our class notation and standard, the D-INF, so that we can achieve this typically improvement process in the industry, where an owner can spec a vessel, and we think in the future charterers and owners will also spec a data package, actually, what they want the vessels to deliver, and on a certain standard. Then the system integrator, very often the yard has to get it into their spec, and then they will then push the vendors to deliver on this. And then we hope to see a wheel and get momentum in the standardization of a common data infrastructure in shipping and in maritime. And that, I think, will be a giant step. A little bit about the naming scheme on sensors applying this. Here, there will be an amendment in connection with the amendment of the 19848 ISO standard. And finally, a little bit about Veracity, our platform, which is basically an open platform, part of the maritime ecosystem, where we also have making a data ingestion for ISO 19848. And the benefit here is really that then we can basically use this as an enabler for developing new applications, and also link the product models in with the class data and also other industry data. So we can start to fill up the products model with relevant standardized data. And this can then be applied by the industry to deliver data-driven services. And one data-driven service, which we now launched together with the data infrastructure notation, is our data-driven verification service, which means that we intend in DNV GL, we are doing it right now on DP vessels, where we try to move, for example, the testing from the vessel centralized ashore, which means that we can do a lot of the testing centralized by taking the ship data to shore and test there, instead of having a lot of people out on the vessel, not only DNV, but a lot of vendors when we do this testing. It is costly, but it also very often represent a delay or abruption in the ship operation. So this is an example where we sort of, from standardization through the VIS and product models and an ecosystem of data, can start to deliver data-driven services. So then I think that will be a big benefit and efficiency gain for the industry. So that was my input today. If you want to read more, you can find more about our thoughts on our team site, which is called Digitalization in Maritime by DNV. So thank you very much.